Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Back if you've seen part one, but we are talking about why it feels hard to take the first step, part two today. So, a while back, we introduced three factors to consider, and we wanted to add more because we've noticed more in our coaching and ourselves. And this is one of those timeless topics of like, it does not matter any point in the year. First steps are hard, and we wanted to offer everyone a place to start. So, if you're just coming in, welcome, welcome. We usually just give a few minutes in the beginning for people to transition from their meetings to join us today. But meanwhile, while I have you here, feel free to drop your name, where you're joining us from as well. And because we're talking about first steps, if you are able to chime in on this question as well, we'd love to hear from you all. Like, what's something that's been hard to take a first step on lately for you? So it could be something you've been thinking about for doing for a long time and you haven't gotten started on it, or there's just something recently you've noticed that like you're dragging your feet around. We'd love to just get some insight on like what are those things that we feel a little tough about taking our first step on. So as we continue to hear those comments from you down below, and then just also wait for folks to join us, we usually start off the space by just sharing and naming two agreements we usually hold. It's the same ones we hold every time. So if you've been with us before, it will sound familiar. But the first one is just to stay curious, right? We always want to mention that Ashmi and I, we are two coaches. We offer two perspectives. It is not the gospel. You might hear something different. You might hear something similar outside, but we just wanted to offer folks a place to start to think about when it comes to the things we struggle with on a daily basis by just being a human being. But it is not the only way to go about things as well. And also, the second agreement is just to stay open. A lot of these are bigger, broader journeys that we experience in our lives. Like, even though we are in adulthood, we never really stop encountering first steps. So, it's going to be something we run into again and again. So, just continue to notice, stay open, stay curious of like, how does that show up for you? What does that resistance look like? And today we'll share three ideas of where to start looking. All right. So hopefully most folks have joined us by now. If you are not familiar with me, just a quick introduction. My name is Betty Chan, and I am an authenticity life coach. I primarily work with first generation code switchers. So folks who feel like they have to be more than one person at different corners of their lives. So whether you grew up as an eldest daughter, an only child, whether you're a manager, a director, just understanding how all those identities we hold, and we're going to talk more about identities today. So, how do we fit all those? How do we embody all of those and just still feel like we are one whole person and that we can show up authentically wherever we are? So, a lot of that work, in my experience, requires us to put down what I call our armor. A lot of us have learned to put these pieces of armor to protect ourselves, to show up in the ways that we need to show up at work or at home, and just how do we take that off if that's no longer serving us. So that's what I do as an authenticity life coach. And also with me today is another familiar face.
Hey everyone, nice to see you back if you're back, and if this is your first time, nice to meet you. We're excited to hear more from you, but my name is Ashmi Patel. I'm a life coach for late diagnosed ADHDers and children of immigrants. That's a mouthful. And I like to work with my clients to help them let go of perfectionism, shame, people-pleasing tendencies, and the goal of letting go of all of that is, one, to give them a life with much more ease, but also to help them build a life that's built on their own intuition instead of external opinions and expectations. And so there's a lot of masking involved. There's a lot of living up to your parents' expectations or like neurotypical standards, and helping people let go of that and figure out like what really works for them, as well as just even just like pacing, living a life at a pace that honors your capacity and
Mm-hmm.
the values that you want to live by. And I like to root my approach in radical self-acceptance to help my clients trust themselves. And a lot of people, when they encounter that, they think it's just accepting all the things about yourself and then never doing anything about it. But I think that radical self-acceptance opens the door to the change that you want to see in a much more gentle way. And I say that I'm about soft accountability and slow journeys. So most of my clients are already really hard on themselves. and life is already hard enough. I'm not in the business of making it harder. So we go at it from a gentle, kind approach. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Mhm.
Before we dive into today, I did want Betty and I to answer the question that we asked, the icebreaker question of like, what's something that's been hard for you to start lately? Sorry, Betty, I'm like
I
putting you
did
on.
not expect this,
I'll,
everyone.
I'll answer first to give you some time to think. But something that's been really hard for me to start for a while, honestly, is getting my
Mm,
newsletter off the ground. And
mm,
we'll talk about a couple reasons for why it's hard for us to start things. But yeah, there's a lot of perfectionism coming up for me when I'm trying to get this thing off and running. But yeah, that's been really difficult for me to start.
mm. Putting me on the
Sorry.
spot. No, no, no. I think it's great that we're also answering this question. It's a lot of how we show up. Like if we're going to ask you a question, we're also going to look at it for ourselves. I have to say, I'm having a hard time coming up with the answer of like something I'm struggling with because I feel like I just got to the other side of the first step for so
Mm,
many things this year. Like I was having a really hard time starting my swim lessons. We talked about that a lot in part one. I was having a hard time launching my authenticity journal. So that's out in the world now. But for a long time, I was fighting a lot of things. We'll talk on that a little later. But like just being someone who could have a product that is in the design realm and like feel good about that as well. Um, okay, take it back. Maybe right now in this season, it's winter, it's getting cold, it's getting dark, daylight savings. There's a lot going on in the world that like just constantly drains me. But getting started to move into my winter mode, I usually like to be a little slower around this time of the year, especially after so many years of working in the corporate world. And like Q4 is like a go, go, go run on your last load of gas to the finish line. And I really just wanted to create a different life for myself. But this year, it's been a little hard to just even take that first step to transition in, probably because I just got out of a lot of different first steps as well. So that would be my thought.
yeah.
Thanks for
Okay.
asking.
Yeah. Thanks for being a good sport about me putting us on the spot. But I can like my example, like I said, perfectionism was one of the things that was like really coming up. And
Mm,
one of the first things that we thought of that can get in the way is perfectionism. And the reason that we did this part two was if you were able to listen to part one, or you can listen to it after this, we talked about things that are really common, but sometimes can be missed because they're so common. And if you know anything about Betty and I, we live in nuance and we love the phrase, let's dig deeper. Hence why we're doing a part two, because today we really want to do the things that are deeply hidden beneath the surface, but can get you stuck a
mhm.
majority of the time, and a lot of people experience. And so, um, we love to live in the nuance, so that's why we're here in part two. And this concept of perfectionism is it's actually quite common, but our take on it is that perfectionism can come up even when you are a person who's not type A.
Mhm.
And so to explain that, it's I think for a long time, or a lot of us think that perfectionists are people who always dot their I's and cross the T's and everything is
Yeah, like I gotta.
organized and like dit, right?
Mhm.
So if you're not that way, then you wouldn't even think that perfectionism could be something that's holding you back. But I think, and Betty, I would love to hear your thoughts, is perfectionism can show up for everybody because it's more about your standards and like what you're expecting yourself to do and show up as. And so, for me,
Mhm.
the newsletter has been really hard because in my mind, if the first thing I send out is not perfect and every detail isn't done, or it doesn't come out exactly the way that I want, then
Mhm.
like there's no
Then
point in.
like why start, right? Yeah. I definitely feel that. And I appreciate you saying that like perfectionism can happen to anyone because you're right. Like I remember the first time someone pointed out my perfectionism to me, it was a very like what you call me kind of vibe that came back from me. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I don't see myself as a type A person. I see myself as easygoing. I see myself as a collaborator, as opposed to someone who like wants their way of the highway, which is what I associate perfectionism with. So I think it's a tension of like, wait, if I'm not this person, why are you saying I have elements and behaviors of this type of personality? And it can feel very jarring to hear that, but perfectionism is just like a collection of expectations and behaviors and how it shows up. And I agree with you, like it's the feeling of being caught in the details, right? Of just exactly you said, like, hey, if I want to start something, like what are all those little things that I have to do? And then the little things pile up and then it starts to feel like too big of a thing to handle. And I can see that happening for the newsletter. That's definitely happened to me before. And I've seen it happen with my clients as well, of just even sharing an idea or of allowing ourselves to think of an idea, like a creative idea of like, oh, I want to start this writing project. Oh, I want to start taking these lessons. Oh, I want to work with this group. But again, like you said, like, but there are all these things I want done and presented and like put together and thoughtful and packaged before I feel good about sharing it with people, which often feels like that first step. But hidden in that is actually like, I don't know, 16, 18, 25, 52 steps that we don't realize that we've kind of just grouped into like first step.
Yeah, and I feel like for a lot of my clients, the way that perfectionism manifests is through attachment and need for
Mm,
control. So it's like this attachment to how they want everything to look. And so
mhm,
it doesn't have to be like, oh, it's gonna be really perfect, but it's whatever that they are attached to and wanting that to
yeah.
be exactly the way it is in their head. And then and then the need to control every single little outcome, and that's how it
Mhm.
manifests. And so it's like, right, you don't have to be a type A person. Like, I'm just, I have ADHD, I'm the most unorganized whatever, so I never thought that perfectionism could be my downfall. And then, yeah, someone called me out on it, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And then, I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, like, always trying to control the outcomes and all the little pieces." And, yeah, I think that that can come up for most of us in lots
Yeah,
of ways.
yeah. And I'm kind of curious what comes up for you. But as you were sharing that, I was like, oh, it's not like we woke up one day and be like, yes, I'm going to micromanage all the steps and I'm going to make sure everything's 110% before anybody gets to look at what I'm doing or share my idea or take on a project. Um, like, I feel like perfectionism is a learned survival mechanism,
Mhm.
right? Like didn't start off a perfectionist, but somewhere along the way, I learned that it was not okay to leave my I's not dotted and my T's not crossed. And there were like real consequences, real punishment that happened afterwards that then made me realize like I need to armor up. I need to keep myself safe and protected from future judgment, future criticism, not being accepted, and so forth. And like my my approach to that was like, okay, I'm going to be even more diligent and making sure everything's put together before I can start something.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's such a great point because I think that that is so true for a lot of us. And then
Mhm.
that made me think of on the flip side, so so sometimes I'll work with clients who are like, "I had a great childhood, everything was fine." I
Mhm.
can't think of any certain moment that made me a perfectionist or that made me want to control all the pieces. But I
Mm.
think there's also the flip side of that of what were you rewarded for? So, were you really
Mhm.
meticulous and then you got positive feedback for, like, always being somebody who's on top of it or always being somebody
Mhm.
who sees the details or whatever? And so it doesn't have to be this, like, traumatic experience. I mean, both are valid and both, I think, affect all of us, but, um, I work with a lot of folks that are like, "I can't think of one thing," and then we go back to the things
Mm.
that they got positive feedback for or they learned that were good, so then they internalize that, and I think, folks, what we're saying is that all paths lead to perfectionism.
Yes. It's hilarious. I'm holding in my chuckle because I'm like, you're right. The reward system is such like an important place to look because yeah, punishment, like carrot and stick, they're both systems that keep us doing a certain type of behavior again and again. So like some people experience the stick version, some people experience the carrot version, which is like positive reinforcement for being meticulous. And I'm just chuckling. It's like, oh, I would kill for the day for my mother to look at me and be like, good job, Betty. You did such a hot mess. That was a wonderful hot mess
Yes.
over there. I'm like, if only.
Yeah, or like, congratulations, you made a mistake. Like you're a human being. It happens to all of us.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm. That's
totally.
something we don't hear very often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think what made me think of it is, you know, I work with children of immigrants, so that's real. A lot of eldest children are gonna probably resonate with that
Mm,
of you probably were just always perfect because you
mm,
had to, but then it was presented to you as an expectation and as part of your identity, honestly. And
mhm.
that I'm gonna like segue us into another point. I hope you're good with us going into something
Yes.
else. But like my brain like is like, oh, identities is like such a big part of
Yeah.
why it's hard to start something. And I do think it's something that none of us would think is getting in the way
Mm,
because it's such a
mhm,
big part of who we are, who we think we are, who we
mhm.
expect ourselves to show up as, and like what we're attached to from like a comfort point of view.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Because like earlier we talked about, well, we're not type A, but there's something else we're attached to. What are those identities that we hold as like a big part of who we are, how we show up, and where we feel proud about ourselves, whether we realize it or
Mm,
not?
yeah.
And I think when there's an impact on that. When something questions that identity, it becomes really hard to take that first step. It's like one coming to mind for me is like one identity I've held for a really long time, and a lot of my clients sharing this is I'm the committed one. If I start something, I have to
Mm,
finish it. And
yeah.
that was really important, especially in the realm of project management, the finishing power that you have as that role. But that also means I got really good at I'm not going to start shit unless I know 100% fact that I can finish it. So it means taking the first step for something that might feel a little more unknown, a little more less shapely in terms of like I don't have a full plan from point A to point Z spelled out already, and therefore I shouldn't start it because I can no longer be this identity, which is the committed one, and therefore I don't do it.
Yeah. I think another one that I hear a lot, like I can think of just like 10 people off the top of my head between my friends, my clients, just people I talk to regularly who say like this a version of this phrasing of like I'm the fixer. I can fix like I'm known to
Mhm.
fix things for my family, for my friends. Like I'm people know me to be really good at my job. And I come
Mhm.
home and I, like, can't even make myself dinner, or I can't even do my laundry or whatever, get it started,
Mhm.
and there's so much, like, self-judgment and not being able to carry this identity across into their personal like, into the personal side of their life,
Mhm.
and I think I mean, that's when then I'll, like, go into, "Okay, well, you're using all your energy to be a fixer for everybody else, so there's nothing left for you." But it is also this attachment, right, to this is how I can show up in so much of my life, and this is how other people see me and value me. And
Mhm.
so when I can't do that for myself, this like shame or self-judgment shows up.
Yes. Yeah. And the theme of that like careful watching, like a vigilance thing of like how are other people going to think about this? How am I going to feel about this myself? You just reminded me of like a third identity that feels possibly very familiar to the people who are on here, especially children of immigrants and anyone who code switches. I call it like the mediator. Right. I
Mm,
grew up as an only child, like day one, mediator between mom and dad, and then became mediator in a professional sense as well. But I think for anyone who has that identity where like there's a part of you that you know people look to you to help bridge different opposing perspectives together, it can feel hard to take the first step because you're not just thinking about what you need. You're constantly trying to think about, well, what does party A, party B, and party C, who's in discriminant, in addition to my thoughts, need? And to your point, Ashmi, what you said earlier, sometimes we're so busy with caring about party A, B, and C's thoughts and what they need to start, we forget to include ourselves in that equation. But then that leads to burnout, and then we don't feel as invested in the work that we need to do and continue to show up for as well. So that would be another identity I would say that shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, or even just like well, one, it's funny you said the mediator, that's, like, literally the what my Myers-Briggs is called. Like, I am a so, I can play
Yes.
with that, but, as I was listening to you talk, I was like, also the reality that if that is you, if you're the fixer, the
Mm,
mediator, the peacemaker, you're probably finishing so much stuff for other people that, of
mm.
course, it's hard for you to start things on your own because
Yeah. Yeah.
you're just hopping in and completing things for everybody else that then and starting something requires a lot more energy than hopping in and finishing things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I don't know.
Definitely.
I just said that so that you can be kinder to yourself when it's hard to start something that like you were completing so many other things. And so starting for yourself
It's
is
true.
harder.
I mean, I like to think of it as like muscle development too, right? If
Mhm.
you're someone who's used to finishing, that takes a certain level of skills, of endurance, of practice to do that. So, someone who does that is just like it's easier for someone who's been exposed to that more because you've done more reps on that front. And therefore, being a visionary person, a starter, feels harder because that's not a muscle, like your left arm is not as flexed on that as well. So I think there are people who are just more practiced in one and the other, but it doesn't have to become your forever identity, is something we're trying to encourage folks to see. Like you could see yourself as a mediator, you can continue to want to value that and take pride in that. But if that seems to be one of the identities that is getting in the way of you starting something you said you really, really wanted for yourself for a long time, then maybe there's another identity that you can lean on, either within yourself or in the people around you to help you get started also. I'm kind of curious for the folks who are watching, like if you resonate with any of the identities that we mentioned, or maybe there's even another one we haven't mentioned. Like, what is let me phrase this as a question. Like, what is one identity you think others associate you with, whether it's true or not, that you think is getting in the way of taking your first step? So we'd love to hear
Ooh,
those in the comments
yeah.
when folks are ready to share. There's one that's so recent that I do want to share, folks, from like on the personal front for me that we laugh. Ashmi's one of the first person I like openly admitted this to. You guys all see me at the end of on the other side, not the end of it, because it's definitely not the end of it. On the other side of launching my authenticity journal, which is a set of deconstructed journal templates that you can peel and stick into any journal, and the intention of that is to help busy people like get to their reflections, get to the priorities that matter the most to them and help you reconnect with it. And I'm so happy that's in the world now. Like I can't imagine
Mm.
ending this year without that. But I'm pretty sure early in the year, I was like, gosh, I'm dragging my feet. I know what to do. And I was like, oh, maybe, well, at first it was like back to part one of our conversations. I don't know what steps to take. Like, I've never launched a physical product. What do I need to do? What are the pricing, inventory, and all that stuff I need to consider? But say we get the plan, I do more Googling, I talk to more experts, and I figure it out. And then I was still hesitating, dragging my step, and then finally renamed it. I was like, Ashma, can I just admit I don't want to be known as the journal lady. I don't even journal freaking consistently. How can I tell people to go journal all the time and then they're going to think I'm the journal lady and then forever I'm going to be stuck as the journal lady? And I'm like, but I like my other identity. I like being a coach. I like being a crafty person. I respect the fact that I have ADHD. Like, how do I make all these identities like happy together and be comfortable and belonging in this new journey I'm taking for myself, which is to launch the Authenticity Journal. So I did want to share it. Sometimes identity is actually something you know you don't want to be. And
Mhm.
then just breaking down and understanding what about that identity you do or don't want, and recognizing that you don't have to take all or nothing. You don't have to accept all the package or say, I can't do it at all, but you can pick and choose the things you want. Like the thing I like about the journal lady identity is someone who's willing to slow down and reflect and like be present about the experiences in their life. The thing I don't like about being the journal lady is having perfectionism in all your layouts, someone who like I believed as like, no offense to any journal ladies out there, someone who believes that like you have to journal 24/7 all the time to make it a useful and powerful tool for ourselves. So just allowing myself to see that there are parts I liked about that and the parts I didn't. And then also considering my other identities as well, like being someone with ADHD, like what does that mean when it comes to consistency? And can I actually turn that into something very intentional in how I create this product. So that's a big reason why I only sell them at 3-month duration. So you don't have to buy the whole year. So things like that, just to give an example that felt very still present for me. It's just a few months ago, I'm like, I don't want to be the journal lady people, but here I am. I am the journal lady.
And we love it. And yeah, it makes me laugh every time. If any other ADHDers here can resonate to always having a pop culture reference running in their head.
Mm.
Every time Betty says journal lady, I think of Joey from Friends and like that Candy episode where some lady's like, Candy lady. So I really hope someone out there understood that reference. But yeah, I can totally resonate to just like Betty, your attachment to not wanting to be attached to being a journal lady. I think we all
Mhm.
have that almost like fear of just being seen as one thing or just being seen as something that
Mhm.
we don't even identify as ourselves.
Yes. Mhm.
And yeah, and I think just being aware of that and how those are coming into play can be a really big first step to not even getting it out of the way, but just seeing it there so that you can figure out what you want to do with it and almost seeing as if like, oh, like if someone does see you as a journal lady, maybe it's not so bad. It could be just
Yes.
the first thing that they know about you, and then as they get to know you, they'll know that
Yeah.
you're much more than journal lady or
Yes.
whatever else. What other identity you
Ah,
hold?
yeah. I mean, I felt a wave of relief even hearing you say that, right? It's like, oh, the attachment is like, I don't want to be seen as one thing, like you mentioned, that I'm more than this one element, that to be authentic, I have many more sides to me. And it's just the hope that at the end of the day, people see me for how I want to be seen.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Well, folks, we got one more thing to look out for when it comes to why it can feel hard taking your first step. And this one, I remember when I first learned it, it was like mind blowing for me. I think it continues to
Same.
still be mind blowing for me, but that we can actually be afraid of what comes after we take that first step. It's like, oh my God, what if I get really good at this? What if it actually becomes a big part of my life after I take the first step? So it's what we call the fear of success and all the implications that come with that. So, Ashmi, how have you seen that play out before?
Yeah, I think I've seen it play out where, like, with clients or friends, we'll be talking about something that they just haven't been able to start, but they've wanted to do for quite a long time. Like, it's been a vision in their head or a dream, and they're like, "I just can't get started on it." And as we pick it apart, we realize that sometimes the longer you wait on something, the more afraid you get for what's to come next or what it would actually look like to finally have that thing.
Mm,
And I don't sometimes I just think like a fear of disappointment is the same as a fear of success
mm, mhm,
because if you think about what it takes to be successful or just to complete something, it it's almost inevitable that you're going to make mistakes or feel disappointed somewhere along the way.
mm,
And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to avoid that feeling of disappointment.
mhm,
And I connect it to also being afraid of success because they're both intertwined. And I sometimes I think we don't complete that sentence of like, I'm afraid to be disappointed because I'm also afraid to have the success that'll come after that. And
Yeah.
I think that's the part that blew my mind because it's so easy for us to be like, yeah, like I'm afraid to fail or whatever, whatever. But it's like, yeah, maybe you're afraid to fail on your way to success or on your
Mhm.
way to the thing that you've always wanted, or you're afraid of it not looking exactly the way you've dreamt of it for years.
Yes. Yeah. And it's such a quiet thought and belief that we have because I mean, it's another flavor of the perfectionism we talked about, right? Because it's true. Any journey to get to any destination we're looking for is going to have its ups and downs. But
Mhm.
when we come from a perfectionist mindset, we expect to plan and foresee everything, and everything needs to go according to a certain way we imagined it. So anything not that feels subpar or feels like a mistake or feels not good enough. And I think that I think that like if I think of that as a journey, like yeah, if I focus on that, then that can feel a lot like disappointment in both, not even just for people around, but like in myself and how I want to show up in that moment too.
Yeah. I think it also can be a fear of disappointment through other people, like, because as I was listening to you talk, what popped into my head was I think a lot of my clients who identify as, like, the fixer or the caretaker, the mediator, are afraid of success because they're scared of the boundaries they're gonna have to set that might disappoint other people who have counted on them this
Mm,
whole time, or if they don't
mhm,
fix it, who's gonna fix it? And so they're like, "If I start this thing that I've wanted for a really long time, it's gonna require me to set boundaries, which is gonna require me to disappoint other people,
mhm.
and
Yep.
I'm known as someone who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just not gonna start
Boundaries,
it."
what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If that's something we hold as our identity, as like someone who's always flexible, then we may not feel as comfortable setting boundaries. And knowing that success would require us to do that, then indirectly we start to avoid even taking the first step to move towards that success for ourselves. Yeah, that's true. I also see it like you reminded me of I don't even know where it came from. I think I saw it from like TV show, maybe watching like Superman or something with great power comes great responsibility. And I
Spider
think we all where is it from?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Okay, it was like one of those that I heard as like a very young kid, and then I was like, oh yeah, that feels like it makes logical sense, but it just becomes like a deep mantra and belief of like, oh, if
Mhm.
you're going to step into this success, if you're going to step into this role or power, then there needs to be great responsibility with it. And if you, like, I remember when I don't feel like I have everything in my life under control, or like things are feeling a little awry, or I'm not feeling at my best, it can be hard to imagine that I'm going to open that door and invite in more responsibility if I
Yeah.
don't even have what is on my plate now under control. So I remember feeling that way when I was a project manager. It's like the chaos of a project, I took that to mean it's like all my responsibility. I'm like, I can't imagine asking for promotion right now if this project isn't even
Mhm.
going the way I want it to. I see it often in my entrepreneur clients as well, especially solopreneurs who are like starting their first company, especially in their family, and not having any sort of mentors or access to other people in their life that has walked that path before them. It's just recognizing that, like, oh, if I ask for this, I don't know. I don't even feel like I can handle my life now, let alone asking for something more. And just learning to like trust ourselves when we don't even have a plan in terms of exactly like spelled out a roadmap of how to move forward.
Yeah, and I think something else that comes along with that, because when you said ask for it, it like triggered this thought into my head of sometimes it takes us so long to start something that we've told so many people about it by that point,
Mm.
and you've built up this like pressure of like, oh my God, like I've told all these people about it. And like
Mhm.
now I really have to do the thing, and they're gonna be watching me as I do the thing, right? So it's this
Mhm.
you've like built up this internal and external pressure, as well as I think a lot of us feel like if I start this thing and it goes well, then I can't change my mind,
Mhm.
even if it ends
Mhm.
up being what I don't want, right? Because
Mhm.
I've made it such a big deal to start and I've asked for all these things and whatever, whatever. And
Mm.
I like to remind my clients all the time that you can change your mind whenever you want. Like, you are an adult. You can eat ice cream for dinner. You can change your mind. To whatever you want. But I think we take that permission away from ourselves, especially when it takes us longer to start something. And
Mhm.
to me, that ties into fear of success, because you're like, oh, like it could go well, and then I could not want the version of well, or like that version
Mhm.
of success. And I don't think there's that many examples of people saying no in that way. So then it's hard to like listen to your intuition at that time.
Mhm. Or there is, but they're just not the success stories we read as case studies or in books that
Yeah.
are
Right.
printed. So we don't, like you said, we don't see a lot of that example, and then therefore we don't give ourselves permission to show up that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we shared three different, hopefully more nuanced. Like these are the what we find and what we call like the deeper blocks that happen when it comes to taking the first step. Things, pretty much things you can't Google your way out of, right? So, like the first one we mentioned is like perfectionism, especially for folks who don't see themselves as type A. The second one mentions like there are quieter, sacred identities that we're holding about ourselves, ones that we feel proud of, but we don't actually ever name out loud often. But that, like the interruption of that identity or the clash with that identity, gets in the way of us committing to taking our first step. And the last one is just being afraid of what comes with that success. So I'm kind of curious for folks who are joining us today, like put a one if perfection is the thing that's holding you back, put a two if you're in the identities element feels more resonant to like what's holding you back, and a three for like, oh my God, I didn't even consider it, but like, yes, I am like bracing myself for what comes with that success. That would be number three, or all of the above,
Yeah,
because
I
that
was
would
gonna
probably
say,
be
can
my
we
answer.
answer all of it?
One, two, three, maybe like four, five, six. We haven't even talked about right now, but we'd love to just get to see. And like also like by sharing this open conversation and sharing, we hope that folks coming through later on and to watch us talk realize that like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Like there are many more people who face this, and these are very, very common things. They can feel very isolating to deal with on your own. So we hope that this conversation helped you just to start looking at it with a bit more kindness for yourself.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain went to thinking like what my answer would be, and it's just stuck on all of the above. So I'm
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. And it can be hard to untangle. And that's what we love to do as coaches. So like if you have a coach, if you have someone in your life that you can talk to like be like, I actually don't know, right? Like maybe just taking the time to slow down and explore each of these. You're definitely more than welcome to reach out to us or a fellow coach in your life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We love to hear from you. Like, we love seeing you in the comments, but we also like love getting DMs, emails, however you want to reach out to us. And just, I don't know, friendly reminders that you can change your mind. Like,
Mhm.
always give yourself permission to change your mind. Naming your identities can be really helpful, I think, to just figuring out what you want to do with them. You don't have to reject them or accept them or anything, just knowing that they're there and how they're coming into play with you wanting to start something. And then that leads back to like getting honest with what's holding you back. So I think as we dug deeper and mentioned all of these, sometimes we just don't know what's coming up for us. And like Betty said, coaching can help that, or talking to a friend, or even journaling with our journal lady. Um, but yeah, if you guys want to get in touch with us, we would love that. For me, ashmipatel.com is like the easiest place to get all the links. Like my LinkedIn, Instagram is all there. But since you're watching this, you should follow me on LinkedIn. All of the interesting things are going to be on LinkedIn and Instagram. And since I confessed to the world today that it's been hard for me to start a newsletter, stay tuned for
Yeah, what
me.
about that?
I'm like, well, I told you guys, I guess I better get this going.
Everybody ping us me in a few days and be like, did
Yeah,
you take your first step?
no, I'm like building up that external pressure. But I actually would genuinely love that if somebody wants to ping me in my DMs. Great. Thank you for that. But yeah, Betty, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. Same similar way. You guys can find me at my website at heybettychan.com. So it's like saying hello to me, Hey Betty Chan. And also there you'll find my LinkedIn, my YouTube, my Instagram. I also just started a newsletter. I'm very slow about actually sending newsletters out, but when I get there, if your name is in there, you will receive the information. But I think this season, because you mentioned, I almost forgot my own thing. It's hilarious. As the journal lady, I do want to create more room for reflection. So if you are looking for a space just to join other people who want to sit down, slow down, and just do some reflection for the month, definitely subscribe to my newsletter. I will be announcing our next BYOJ party. It stands for Bring Your Own Journal. And we'll just do a little bit of slowing down, seeing what's in our head, and then sharing it out loud with people who can hold that gentle space for us. So you're definitely welcome to stop by.
Great.
Mhm. All right. Well, we will also include in the comments a link to part one in case you want to check that out. But otherwise, we hope that today's conversation was a wonderful starting space to just look at what's getting in the way because we want you to get to that dream. We want you to get to that, to the finish line of what you're hoping for yourself. So we hope it does support you in that.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.